Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. So today I'm delighted to be joined by Becky. Welcome to the show, Becky.
Thanks so much, Simon. I'm so grateful to be here.
Yeah. So could you introduce yourself to the listeners, please, Becky?
Yes, I am Becky Fawcett. I live in New York City. I am the adoptive mom or mom by adoption of two girls, 16 and 12 years old now, both domestic U.S. adoptions. And my journey and struggle to become a mother also spurred my desire to help others. And almost 15 years ago, I founded an organization called helpusadopt.org. And it is a national financial grant program based on a platform of family equality to help people cover the costs of adoption. So here I am.
Fantastic. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering how am I going to get in touch with stuff, there'll be links in the show notes to Becky and her organization and all the social links as well, so you can check out what she's doing. So how old were the girls when you adopted them?
Newborns. So Jane, I was actually in the delivery room with her birth mother when she was born. And Brooke decided that she was going to enter this world 3 weeks early and in about 15 minutes, surprising everybody, including her birth mother, but they did make it to the hospital.
Wow.
So Brooke, and it was the week of Thanksgiving. So flying from New York to Texas, I between renting a car or flying or waiting for tickets or whatever, I was going to be 3 days late, no matter how it shook out. So yeah. I met Brooke on day 3 of her life, and we've been together ever since.
Wow. So she must have just had a birthday, yeah, because we're recording this a couple of weeks after Thanksgiving. Yeah. Yep.
Both girls, Jane is end of October and Brooke is November, mid-November.
Mid-November.
So
they're both Librans then, are they? One's a Libra and one's a
You know what? I have no idea. I'm so not I love hearing about all the astrological signs, but I will never in my life get this right, which who's who.
No.
Are they Sagittarius?
Sorry?
Are they Sagittarius?
I'm not sure. I don't really I don't put any store in it whatsoever, so I don't know really why I asked the question. Sometimes real rubbish comes out.
Well, and my husband's birthday is early November, so it is just a big birthday celebration at the Fawcett household in the fall.
It's all go, yeah. Yeah, my dad was a Libran and my sister is Sagittarius. So yeah, one's October, one's November. That's why I raised it, I think.
Got it.
My mum and my sister. So thriving adoptees and thriving adoptee teenagers, right.
16's no joke, Simon. I mean, I remember being 16. It's a challenging year. But I'm still upright. I'm still smiling. Yeah. My God.
Still upright. That's the main thing, right?
That is it. And she's great. But she's 16. And so, she does have a mother who every time she does something, I'm like, you're going to have to give me better than that because I invented that, and I just turn around and walk the other way. It's fine. Yeah. But it's not as lovely as 12.
Right. So what you're meaning is you can't kid a kidder. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I'm like, I gave my mother a run for her money. Do I regret it? Of course I do. Doesn't every adult look back and go, oh God.
Yeah, 16. Yeah, I'm 54. That seems like a long time ago.
It was a long time ago for me too. I'm 51. I mean,
Yeah. And well, I said this I've done 2 podcasts recorded today, and neither of the ladies that I've interviewed look anything like their age. So that's good. So thriving adoptees then, what comes to your mind when you hear that phrase?
I think, at least for us, of when I entered into the world of adoption, the openness for us as a family has been the key. And, I instantly knew, my gut just told me that the more we knew about these birth parents, the more we talked about these birth parents, the more I let the world know my children were adopted, it's all good. It's almost demystifying the stigma. And also with my kids, we are an adoptive family, fact. It's a fact. It's not going anywhere. Till the day I die, I will be a mom by adoption. In my legacy, I will be a mom by adoption. So to treat it any other way, to me, doesn't make sense. I think my kids are, listen, I have a troublesome 16-year-old, but it has nothing to do with adoption. I think she's met her birth mother. She knows who she is. Her birth mother's actually coming to visit again in January after the holidays. She knows her story as much as I know her story. And now, at 16, I'm like, you can ask your birth mother more stuff directly. What comes to mind, especially with that, is when they first met this summer in person for the first time. And if anybody's listening, wondering, why did you wait till she was almost 16? Because she was in charge of that. I had offered over the years to make the introduction face-to-face, and to bring her birth mother to New York, which is what we did. And she didn't want to. So, I was very also aware that I let my kids drive the bus where it's concerning their adoption and how fast we move or how slowly we move or how much they want to talk about it every day. It's their choice, but I have always along the way said, I'm here, and brought it up more frequently. They've turned me down to talking about it. That's fine. But I never want them to think that this is something I don't want to discuss. I'm very proud of the way our family was built, and I always want to discuss it. Or answer their questions, because everybody needs to know where they come from. You need to know your story. You might not like it. You might wish you were still there, whatever the case may be, or you might love your current life. But everybody needs to know these details so you can know them. And my daughter, when she first met her birth mother in person this summer, she said, what am I going to talk to her about? And I said, I don't know. I'm going to let you guys are two grown-ups. You can go deal with this. But I said, you might want to ask her why. Because I've told you the why, as I know it, for your 15, almost 16 years on the planet. But it might be really nice for you guys to talk about what happened to her back then and how you ended up with us and what her decision-making process was, and hear it from her, watch her, like, see how this was not easy for her. And I go, test me out, see. And anyway, they did go out by themselves. They had a wonderful time by themselves. And when my daughter got back, Jean got back, I said, did you ask her? She goes, same story as you, Mom. And the reason I love that so much is because same story from both women. That means the truth. I honored my kids. I honored their birth mother stories. And as much as my disagreeable 16-year-old wants to think I'm the crazy person, she knows I've got her back. She knows it. And that little instance there proved it. Like, I'm here. I'm in this with you. Like, you're struggling. I'm struggling. That's all there is to it all the time. And that's why I think we have thriving adoptees. And I think the openness overflows into everybody. Yeah. More information is better.
It's
was that too long an answer, Simon? Oh my gosh, I think that was a long answer.
Well, you kind of jumped ahead of me. This is,
oh no.
this is you jumped ahead of me in a good way.
Okay.
I'm just flicking around my screen because I just got an article that I did an interview with somebody, and and she's interviewed me, and then she's written it up into an article, and she's got a dictionary definition of thriving, and I thought I came up with this name for the podcast, Thriving Adoptees, and I never ever actually looked it up in a dictionary. So this lady's done that, and what it says is, according to the dictionary definition of thrive, growing well and vigorously indicates something such as a plant or a person is thriving. So growing well and vigorously, and I thought, that's I think that these two girls have got a very vigorous mother. And I think maybe your vigor is rubbing off on them. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, when both of my kids are very, when kids grow up, mothers share stories. I've got a kid who doesn't want to do work in school, doesn't want to do homework. And I've got another kid that really struggled to read. Believe it or not, the pandemic blew that. I don't know what, but she's great at reading now. So she's terrific. My other one still doesn't want to do homework. But other people would say to me that their issues with their kids were that their kids couldn't pivot, or their kids were inflexible to a change in plan or whatever. And I've got to tell you, I have two of the most flexible kids on the planet, and they can pivot on a dime. And it is a great quality to have in life. They also make friends wherever they go. They can talk to anybody. And I think that's also comes from me too. But we'll see. It's, you can only hope, as a parent. I also take all the things from my childhood of things I wish I'd been better at, blah, 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 blah. And I share them with them. I don't teach them necessarily to say, you have to do this. But now that they're teenagers, I do say, I wish I'd done this when I was 16, 17, and 18, but, I got away with not doing it. Or I wish I'd been more of a risk taker when I was 18 years old. And here's an example of why. And I just share the information with them, because no one likes to be told what to do, especially an older teenager. But I think the whole reason that we grow up and learn from it is to not make the same mistake twice, And so that I just share all my mistakes with them, and hope to God they're listening, Simon. I mean, they're probably not even listening. Because they have earphones in, right? They're not listening to me.
Well, when it goes live, they can listen to the mum talk about them, and or they can do what they do, TikToking or Instagram.
Yeah, and they're going to make their own mistakes, and that's fine. But I'm not going to sit and be silent.
No.
Yeah.
So you a couple of things I wanted to unpack from what you have discussed there. So seems to me that you're giving your kids a lot of agency, a lot of power, and I mean this in a good way, right? So you're saying it's their choice.
It's their choice. It's their story.
So it's their story. It's openness, as in open adoptionness. But more than that, it's openness in terms of straight down the line communication. And
also openness, Simon. You and I had talked about this in a previous conversation. It's openness to love. And there's something very powerful in that. Here we go, 16 plus years ago. A stranger calls me, right? Pregnant stranger. I saw your book. Okay. I think you and Kipp look great. Okay. Let's meet. Okay. I want you to parent my child. I'm simplifying this for your listeners. I'm simplifying this. Bottom line is, we made a commitment to love each other, period. Strange women, strangers, You have like an hour meeting and all of a sudden you can say, I love this person. I loved her from the moment because she chose me. She chose me. Then I loved this kid before this kid even came into the world unconditionally. I don't know what's coming out. I'm just like, I knew it was girl, but like, come on, here we go. And that love that I show my kids' birth mothers, come on, you don't think they realized that when they were 1 year old and couldn't even talk? They know. They know. Talk to them about it when they were little. Oh, I talked to your birth mother today. Or here's the little toddler. Oh, I sent pictures to your birth mother. Because back then, sorry, we had to send pictures. There weren't all these fancy photo sharing pages and sites that could be private, or that didn't exist back then. And, I think the openness to love these people that come and her openness to love me, for God's sake, I'm just as much of a stranger. And it makes the world a better place, this whole kindness and accepting and no questions asked. And, I think no one was asking her for a list of all her past mistakes, and no one was asking for a list of all my past mistakes. They were just saying, here you go. And there was no judgment. It was one woman helping another and another woman helping. Like, we were there for each other. And I think that, I really do. I'm sorry to say that I think adoptive parents of the past, some, not all, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to really actively remember every day that this child did not come out of their body. And by not talking about it, you really sent, unknowingly maybe, a very negative message to these children. And in some cases, I understand that relationships are different, that relationships are closed. But here's the deal: dead, alive, closed, open. As an adoptive mother, I can talk about my children's birth mothers with love. How hard is that? They don't have to be sitting next to me. I don't have to have talked to them. They don't even have to be alive, to be honest. And in some cases, what if you adopt an orphan? But you can always talk about their birth mother, even if you don't know her name. Always talk about them with love. But honestly, the birth mother that I saw this summer, and I will see again in a few weeks, when we were together in August, we were laughing because we were like, if you walked by us on the street, you would never think we could be friends. You just wouldn't. We are like night and day. I'm older, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's just one of those things. And we laughed. She's like, no one told me we could be friends. I'm like, okay, no one told me we could be friends. Like, I mean, as the adoptive mother, they say, if they disappear, let them go. Well, that's the worst piece of advice. That may be another podcast, Simon. But, I held on to this woman because I made a promise to her, to my daughter, to myself, to my family. Like, so I held on to her for dear life at all the bumps in the road along the way. And we're at a great place, but we laugh so hard. We're like, no one told us that a friendship and this kind of mother bond could be possible.
That's amazing. When we had the chat last week or the week before about what we were going to chat about, that really, it really got me that when you said, well, I love her. And I was like, oh, I thought it was great.
I mean, it's funny. I would love to write a book. I don't think I'll ever write a book. And, I always joke that, she's the other woman in my life. Like, like when Jane lost her first tooth, I hate to say this, my poor husband did not get the first phone call.
Wow.
When the braces went on, who got the first picture? Like, she's, it's not a co-parenting situation at all. It's not that, but like, she's my go-to. Like, I don't know. First of all, I owe her my life. I really do. I mean, yeah. I really do. Plain and simple. That's how I feel. But like, I want to share this good news with her. I also share the bad news with her about the homework. it's not all rosy. Like I call, like we talk, and I'm like, but it's just, again, it's the openness, it's the acceptance, it's the be a part of our life. It's the only way I really know how to do it.
Yeah. I heard something recently about the difference. Well, kind of like, when I say difference, I mean like as different as an X and a Y axis are.
Okay.
You know what I mean by that? And so when you look at a graph, one of the axes, I can't remember which one it is horizontal, and the other one is vertical, right? So the fact that liking somebody and loving somebody are like an X and Y axis. They're not parallel tracks. They're completely different. So we can love everybody. We don't have to like them. And I heard that yesterday on a podcast or something like that, and it really struck me. But I don't really know why it struck me. Only because I was surprised that it was that these two things are not parallel tracks. They're kind of more like, I think the word is.
Well, and also, I'm friendly with a few birth mothers, and one of the things that always comes up time and time again is that birth mothers are painted as imperfect human beings by society, and adoptive mothers are painted as saints. No. Adoptive mothers are human too. I mean, honestly, you want to hold someone accountable for all the mistakes they've ever made in their life. That's what a lot of birth mothers feel that people do to them. If I had all the mistakes I made as a young woman rubbed in my face at 50, are you kidding? We are humans. You grow up, you make mistakes. Some people have more guidance, some people have less guidance, but let's be honest here. An unplanned pregnancy can happen to anyone. So, I always, it's just very interesting who society paints the villain. And when, I talk a lot about that in my work as an advocate for birth mothers. They're not who you think they are.
Yeah.
One of the women that I, believe it or not, that wanted to match with us before we found our daughter, our oldest birth mother, she was 52 years old. She was a grandmother. She didn't even think she could get pregnant. And the reason she wanted to place the baby is that she was with another man who she knew would not like this situation at all, because they were grandparents. They were moving through their life. And but she loved him and she wanted to be with him forever. So one of the first things that as a birth mother or an expectant mother has to do when they're matched with a family is go to a lawyer designated doctor's office and get proof of pregnancy. And so she got proof of pregnancy. She then told him, and he got down on one knee and proposed to her. The happiest story, right? But she is not who you would expect to be a birth mother. Come on. They expect some horror story. And I always correct people. I'm like, you know what? Birth mothers are just a human like me who finds themselves in an unexpected situation.
Yeah.
And, we're here to help them through it. That's what the world should be here for, is to help you through it. So I always advocate for birth mothers and how they're treated by society, because I think they're wonderful human beings.
Yeah. I heard a stunning statistic from one of the podcast guests, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was now. Something like there's 20,000 adoptions each year in the US and 800,000 abortions. Like, I'm not a Catholic. I'm not anti-abortion or anything. 20,000 versus 800,000. It's like,
so this is a
discussed.
charged topic that the
Yeah.
conversation can never win. But I will say this. I'm not sure how many women are truly educated as to what adoption is, how they can have support while they're pregnant. If they, if this is something they choose, I don't think it's always offered as an option, would be my guess, is all I'm going to say. And I think so many women in crisis who they find out they're pregnant, it is not planned, it throws them in crisis. If they had someone sitting by their side who said, let me just A, help you. How nice would that be? B, listen to you. And C, talk about your options. And let's see how you can get support, how you can be taken care of, so that's all I'm going to say on that topic. But again, that, Simon, goes back to being open.
It goes back to being
open to different scenarios, open to education, open your heart, take care of another human being who is in pain.
Yeah.
Come on, like, we can do better by taking care of another human being who's in pain.
We can.
We can. It's so easy to be kind to someone.
And how courageous they are through that pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put yourself in their shoes for 2 seconds. You would hope to God that someone would come sit by your side and take your hand and say, it's going to be okay. We're going to help you through this.
To me, it sounds like you like and love your birth mothers.
I do. I'm very lucky. Very, very, wonderful situations. And with my youngest daughter, I actually know her grandparents too. And I've met some of the uncles and a cousin who was her best friend. I very, very fortunate. But my daughter's the lucky one on that end, and they are lucky too, because, most of the time extended family members, they wonder about the child. They wonder what's going on. So everybody's programmed in my phone. Pictures go out. Although as teenagers, they don't let me take pictures anymore, Simon. So, but it's again, I'm telling you, this is my personal humble opinion. The thriving is all tied in to the openness and honesty and transparency. I have nothing to hide from these grandparents. Like, I think it's great that we can know this. I think we can have history, and my daughter has it.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me as you were talking about as you were talking about talking to your daughters when they were little, was that like people talk a lot. People talk about trauma and pre-verbal, right? Pre-verbal, and so you think, well, what struck me is you're actually, before your girls could understand, you were using the words. So it wasn't there was never a sit down moment whilst they could. And the funny thing was that, like, my mum and dad told me with the aid of a storybook, right? Before I was 2. Now, I'm sure they did it in a completely, different way to you, and used the birth mother, and they did it in a completely different way. They used it with the storybook, but there was never a jarring moment.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? There was never a shock moment. There was never a kind of Papa, the big reveal. Right. The big reveal.
No one wants to hear, sit down, I have something to tell you. No, I mean, think about it. If someone says that to me today, I start sweating, Simon.
Yeah.
I'm 51 years old. And if someone said to me, sit down, I have something to tell you, it's bad.
Yeah.
There's nothing good. They don't say, sit down, I have something to tell you, $1 million. No one says that. It's bad. So people ask me all the time, when do I tell my kids? I usually have a heart attack when they say that because I'm worried it's too late. I say as soon as they're in your arms, because that answer is universal. One of the things that I think is so hard in adoption is that everybody's story is different. So to give universal answers, baby, adult, teenager, toddler, is impossible. So when do you tell your kid? When they're in your arms in the delivery room, when you get a 2-year-old out of foster care, when you adopt a 15-year-old from China, you put them in your arms. It's universal. The minute they become yours, you put them in your arms and you start using the language. I'm so grateful adoption exists. Keep using the word. My kids, this is a totally normal, everyday word. Birth mother, all of it. And again, my kids know like more about all this probably than anybody's kids, but it's like, because we talk about it so openly, it's led to other conversations that I've had, like, what is an unplanned pregnancy? How do you get pregnant? How does all this happen? What is sex? All these things, like my children, I'm just like, okay, here we go. And we tell it like it is factually. Again, it's all factual. So you mentioned a storybook, which I often love because, again, I get a lot of questions from people. I love this book so much, but I adopted a Black child and the book's about a white child. How do I do this? Or I love this book so much, but it's about domestic adoption and I adopted from India and I'm not sure. So here's what I did, just again, out of my gut, because 16 years ago, sorry, I can't even talk. 16 years ago, there weren't as many adoption books. They didn't really exist. There was only like one mainstream one, and it wasn't necessarily our story. So that's what I did. I would start to tell her when she was a little older, this is what happened. This woman in Maine heard that we were looking for a baby and we went upstairs looking for a baby and we couldn't find, we went downstairs looking for a baby. And this woman in Maine heard, and she had a baby who she needed to find parents for. And lo and behold, over the years, this just became, and then Brooke was like, tell me my story. And she, of course, loves her. You came 3 weeks early, the week of Thanksgiving, in about 15 minutes, and were almost born in the back of a car. Like, she thinks it's the funniest thing ever. She just thinks it's great. But like, sorry to the book industry, you don't need a book. You've got the best story in your head. If you want to write notes and turn it into a book for your kids to have, amazing. But like, you've got the best story right here. You can tell your kid in phases, like, and if you need to get them to sleep, and then I'll tell you what happens next tomorrow night, but I always
I don't want to go to sleep. I want the rest of the story.
Yeah, I want the rest of my story. And you know what? If that's the answer, how lucky are you? That's the greatest thing ever. But what's funny is when I was doing this with Jane, my oldest, I called my mother. So I was probably, I was 35 when I had my first. So I was at least 35. I don't know, maybe I was probably 38, 39, 40. And I called my mother and I said, I don't know my story. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, well, I guess I was a boring biological baby, like, your first, but I was your first child. What happened the night I was born? What happened? Like, was it easy? Was it hard? Turns out that my parents almost ran out of gas on the way to the hospital. Like, okay, well, that's sort of interesting. It's not as exciting as my kids' stories, but like, I had never heard it, Simon. Had no idea.
Yeah, but
I just knew I was born. That was the end of that.
Yeah, but but you're not telling stories. You're telling the truth. Well,
again, back to it all.
Yeah,
back to it all. There's this. Listen, we all know. I mean, stories. Life provides wonderful stories. People just don't want to see them. But
I was talking to an adoptee, right? An adult adoptee, and his curiosity, right? His curiosity about his story, his truth, ate him up for decades. Not decades. There's another word in there. There's a word for 20 years. I can't remember. I think it ate him up for, I would say, conservatively, probably 40 years.
Awful.
So that's what, in the absence of knowledge, our minds go in to try and fill in that gaps, and they come up with,
of course they do,
all sorts of stuff, and most of it is pure fiction. Well, it's got to be pure fiction because it's not the truth. Yeah.
And listen, it's just the closed days of adoption and the secrecy and the shame and the lies. It is one of the things that just drives me crazy. And that might sound cliche. I mean, I recently read a book. I don't remember the title, but it was finally published about here in New York, the tragedies of the closed adoption system and some of the dishonest behavior that went on behind closed doors. And I read it as an adoptive mom, furious. I would like to think that being an adoptive mom, just being a human being, would be enough to read this book and become furious. People deserve more. Again, it all goes back. Human beings deserve kindness and care, period. And the adoption world, way back when, did not give it out. They lied. They really passive aggressively, emotionally tortured adoptive parents, emotionally tortured the birth parents, lied about it, kept birth mothers from ever knowing the truth of where their children were going and forging an open relationship. Really just, it's horrendous. It's horrendous. And I will say this, Simon. So when my daughter's birth mother came this summer, she was going to be in our home and they were going out together. And one or two of my friends, before this all happened, they were like, "You're not going to leave Jane alone with her, are you?" What?
Yeah.
What? Like, what is that? And I was like, I absolutely am going to push them out of my door together with some money for lunch. Like, I want them to be together. I want them to have a relation. I'm not scared of her. She's not scared of me. You
love and trust her.
She's my child's birth mother. Yes, like obviously it was not a dangerous situation. I have a better eye for judgment than that. However, I think, look what society thinks. Society thinks I'm nuts. I haven't seen this woman in 15 years and I'm going to let her just walk out of my apartment with my child. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And they came back. They had a great time. They don't need me. Like I told them from the start years ago, like someday you will have a relationship that does not include me, and again, trust and love. So she's part of our family.
Where did you find the inner strength that you have for all this stuff?
I don't know. I think honestly, I've always been, I'm the oldest of 5. So the fix it mother hen type of personality, was always there. Keeping everybody together and, herding cats down the street was always there. but I have to tell you, the going through the in vitro process and having it fail and having pregnancies and miscarriages and being denied, the one thing that, like, honestly, if I hadn't been a mother, my life would have had no meaning. That's my story. Might not be someone else's story, but that's my story. Having that denied to you, I don't know. And then the whole thing changed me. And then, I think at that point I just realized, and then the other thing that changed me, to be less dramatic than that, Simon, is at 36 years old, we moved to New York. It was really before the days that Facebook kicked in for my age group. I knew nobody. We moved to New York City with a baby. I knew absolutely nobody. And my husband was working like 90-hour weeks at a finance job, talking about working hard. You and I were talking about that off the line. I mean, it was insane. He worked weekends, he worked nights, he worked till 3 a.m. Like, it was crazy. So I basically moved to New York City with this 6-month-old baby, and I had no friends. And I had days, I will be honest, that I cried. I couldn't believe what I had done. All my friends were back in Philadelphia, and it was August in New York, so no, the city was empty. So that I might have known 1 or 2 people, but like, they weren't around. And I don't know, I just figured it out and decided, like, I love New York. I knew I'd be happy here, but I had to make my way at 36 with no friends. And, it was very interesting. And I made it through that. I now have friends. I don't cry anymore, but, but, I don't know. I can't tell you exactly, but I have become, I believe, who I was supposed to be, advocating for others and mother of these kids, and having the job I have at Help Us Adopt. And I don't know. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it surprises people when you can really step up for someone that really has no connection to you, but you step up because it's the right thing.
Can I answer my own question on the basis of what you said?
Yeah.
I'm going to use a metaphor. It's one of my favorite ones, and I have used it before. So apologies, listeners. Apologies to you if you heard it before. So are you aware of a statue called David by Michelangelo? That's somewhere.
Yes, in Florence.
Yeah, in Florence. Have you heard what Michelangelo is alleged to have said, asked about this question? Yeah. So
no.
So this is a great story, even if it's not true, right? I think it is true. So somebody's interviewing Michelangelo about this massive statue of David. It's like a stone statue, and he says, the guy says, how did you create David? And he says, well, David was already there in the stone. I just had to chip off what wasn't David. So the moral of the story is that David was revealed. How that relates to you, and it is my pet theory on resilience, right, is that your resilience was revealed. You didn't know how strong you were. You wanted to be, I'm guessing you wanted to be a mum from when you were pretty young, did you? Yeah, it was always in your path to become a mum, right?
Not 5. I don't need to have 5 children the way my parents did.
You didn't need 5. You need to be, you want to be a mum, right? Well, you stuck at 2, so that yes. the proof's in the pudding. So you wanted to be a mum, and you went down all these. You went down these different routes, the IVF, tragically, the miscarriages, all that stuff. And through that, you realized the strength that you didn't know you had. And that's where you got the strength from. That's just my opinion. The critical thing is that you saw it for yourself.
And I saw what it could do for others, Simon.
Sorry?
I mean, I saw what it could do for others.
Yeah.
Within the first 6 months of Help Us Adopt, I saw what having the courage to go out there and tell my story and talk about what was happening to people and happening to children needed help, and that I had created a vehicle to help, but I didn't have any money. And checks started coming in. People kept saying, "What? I never knew this. I want to help these children. I want to help these families. How is this?" And then I just saw the power of being open and honest and transparent about all this and educating people, right? Educating people about the problem. People still to this day, I all the time, they, how on earth could adoption cost $40,000, $50,000? I had no idea. And they, I mean, grown up, educated human beings, they have no idea because it wasn't in their path, right? So we're changing it. We're talking about it. And, you know, and it is funny when you're bold and you say things that other people don't want to say. The fear is, aren't you upset? Aren't you worried you're going to upset someone? Aren't you worried someone's not going to like what you have to say? And someone's going to say something mean back about you or to you, or aren't you worried? And the answer is, I'm not really worried, because people say mean things about other people all the time. So whether I keep my mouth shut or open, it's going to happen. So I feel better. You want to dislike me? Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Because I'm doing this. And I'm going to keep doing this because of all the people it can help. So I don't mind sharing my truths. I don't mind making bold statements about this and how the world mistreats birth mothers. How could the world, again, fact, the world mistreats birth mothers. It's not okay. No. The mistreatment of any human being is not okay. But this happens to be the little corner I'm in. You know, so we just keep going. I have my friends. I have my family, you know. Do I get beat up and battered? Occasionally, but I got to tell you something. If you're not really pushing someone to the point of being uncomfortable with what you have to say, are you really initiating change? Change is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. There's a reason why people do things over and over again the same way. It's a comfort zone. So I really do try to mind my P's and Q's. I never want to be rude, but I will tell the truth. And if the truth about adoption makes some people uncomfortable, then we've got to move through that. We've got to educate them to the point where they might not be so uncomfortable about talking about this. You know, I can't change the hurt for past generations, but I can make an effort to make the future better. Yeah.
So on that point, pulling together two of the things that you just said, when your friend said, "Are you going to leave your daughter alone with this one?" What did you say to them?
I told them they needed to stop watching so many Lifetime movies of the week.
And did they take that with good grace?
I said, you have to give me some credit for knowing the situation. You know, I'm not really meeting a stranger off the road. I have a 16+ year relationship with this woman. Like, we have a common bond. Like, come on, I know better.
Did they accept this? Did they accept that?
I think they felt very foolish, and I really didn't want to make them feel, wasn't there. I'm not there to make you feel badly about what you said. I'm aware how the world thinks. I mean, good Lord, I know how the world thinks. Did I think my friend was going to say it? No. But
interesting.
But I just, you know, I politely was like, come on, give your old friend some credit here. Like, I know what I'm doing. And I moved on, but I think they were sort of embarrassed that they went there.
Yeah. I'm kind of asking a follow-up on this, really, because it must be a credit somewhat to your communication style, if you can take the compliment on that. I don't find a lot of people changing their mind. Like I find typically a lot. I'm talking very much about British people here. So they will say something. So they say something, and somebody else counters them back, and it might be on a really inconsequential, issue, right? And they seem to concede your argument. So there's and I can tell by there's something in their voice that there's a but coming. So instead of they're making out that they agree with me, they're making out, not in the American sense of making out, right? We don't use that word, but they're pretending, because we're nice and British and middle class, and they're pretending that they're being nice to me, and that and us, and they take our board on that point. But there's something in the mind, and I know there's a but coming, which means that what I have said, or what the alternative view has not landed on them at all. But they're polite and they're British, so they basically just lie in a really nice way. And so, yeah, you've got a point, and you go, yeah, where's the but? And they haven't moved it on. And at that point, I kind of like back off and say, well, it's your opinion. I'm not going to change it, and I'm not really bothered. But that's why I was interested to hear that. I don't know.
I think, number one, there are always people like that. Like I always tell, listen, I know people like that. If you look hard enough, you can find the bad side to anything. These are the people who, if they won $1 million at the lottery, those same people, Simon, would be like, oh, this is awful, I have to pay taxes. You just won $1 million. Like, please. These people would find fault with anything. So the bottom line is, you look for your people. You look for your people. Like, I have people all the time. I had a conversation a month ago where someone really didn't like the fact that we support LGBT adoption. I'm like, thank you very much. And I walked away. They're like, wait, I want to have I'm like, I don't want to have a conversation with you. That's fine. You be you, but my time is valuable. I'm done. But they wanted to school me on this. I'm not going to be schooled on this. And they were like, brilliant. I can't believe how rude you are walking away on a conversation. I'm rude. Oh my God, you just categorized an entire group of people and say they shouldn't be parents. Like, I'll be rude. Goodbye. And that's it. Like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm here to find the group of my people that believe in what I believe, that believe that these families should be parents. And those are my people. And the funniest thing is, like, I have had friends a long time ago, Simon, because they are not part of my life anymore, who, when I was adopting, I think my second, and maybe I met them in New York and they didn't, I don't know, but whatever. They were like, find out both my kids are adopted, find out I do help us adopt. And they're like, I really don't believe in adoption. I hope we can still be friends. I'm like, we cannot. Goodbye.
Brilliant.
But I hope we can still be friends. We cannot be friends. You just insulted my family, period.
Yeah.
But the question is, to that girl in particular, who I remember exactly who she is, who had 4 biological children, on what basis are you making your judgment? Because I'm sure there are people out there who did not have a great adoption story and it's not good. And I am very sorry for that pain. But again, there's something bad all the time in everything we do. But, this is the thing, is that there was someone making a horrific, hateful statement about the way my family was built on what? Her Lifetime Movie of the Week experience? I don't know. No. Where does the hate come from, or the dislike? And And again, adoption is not for everyone, Simon. I understand that. I know that there are people who do not want to break the biological chain, no matter what the circumstance. I get it. It's fine. You do you. But how can you say you don't believe in it for someone else, for the child that needs a home? What makes you say that? No one will ever back it up and tell me why, because they don't even know. That's just what comes out of their mouth.
Yeah. I heard a great one on this. A mentor of mine, somebody came up to him after he'd done a talk, and said that they disagreed with him. But did it in the British way, which was, I thought you had some interesting points, and then
Right.
And he didn't say anything.
I think my father's British, based on what you just said.
He didn't say anything, right? He didn't say anything. And this woman kind of looked at him, and he looked back at her, and he said, "Oh, you expected me to say something?" And and we kind of like, well, why do we want to get into a fight? Why do we want to waste our life fighting with people? But this guy had the, whatever. He just, because he probably figured. Well, he says, he has a great metaphor for this. So his version is, we've all got that voice. We've all got a voice in our head, right? And his the voice in the head is like an audio book, and it tells us what's wrong with us or whatever it is. But he calls that audio book the script. So it's all the rubbish that we've picked up in life as we've gone through life, all the duff ideas and beliefs from other people. We've just picked them up because we're like sponges. And he said, he says, I don't dance with scripts. I don't argue with other people's inner critic. I just walk away and leave it, because my life is too short to get into an argument with somebody, because it's very rarely that they're going to change. It's a waste of my oxygen. It's a waste of my time, and it's a waste of my oxygen, because most of the time, most people don't want to change, right?
I think that's true. I think you're not going to change them. Leopards don't change their spots. It just doesn't. I once went to, this is a long time ago, went to a dinner party, or it was someone's party, but it was a seated dinner. And I was in between, my husband was at the same table, but I was in between two men. One I sort of knew, one I did not. And so comfort zone, you start the conversation with the person you already know. And I think I had just adopted my second child. So this person was married to my friend and said, "Oh, so his wife told me you just adopted a baby." Eating. And I said, "Yes, I did. I mean, this is a very happy moment. I'm a new mom. I'm out. This is exciting." This man went on to say that he could not imagine that another woman could give her baby away to a stranger. And he went on and on and on and on to be like, I just can't imagine that any woman would give her baby away, and blah, 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 blah. And I finally looked at him when I could get a moment in. And I said, then you've clearly never met a birth mother, and they don't give them away. And I turned my back and I talked to this man on my other side who was a stranger, and I kept my back to this guy the whole time. I'm like, I'm not going there. First of all, giveaway is an antiquated term, and it's a terrible term because it's not true. You meet any birth mother, she might have been under duress or something awful, like in the past, babies were taken, but it wasn't her giving away. And that is a very important thing to talk about. But I turned my back to this guy throughout this whole dinner. I don't have time to listen to that. It's a shame that's how he thinks, but there was no way he was going to listen to me, go on. So I just, it was rude what I did, but I didn't really feel that I cared at that point.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, where did the fork and where did the knife and fork end up, or maybe a glass of wine got tipped over him or something.
Right. Well,
but
here was the deal. I could have
well.
made, my husband thanked me when we left, and I told him in the taxi home, like, he's like, thank you for just getting through that. I wasn't here to ruin anybody's party. That's never it. But I'll be damned if you're going to talk meanly and negatively about people I love. Sorry, not gonna happen.
Brilliant. I love that.
It's all good. It's exhausting, but it's good.
Yeah, it's exhausting, but it's good. So I'm just conscious of time. Have you got anything else that you'd like to share with the listeners?
I think we had some really great conversations.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and I'd love, honestly, I would love to ask your listeners to, when you put this out, to send your questions. So I know this isn't live, but it would be so great. We talked about a lot of really interesting things. And I'll be honest, I think we talk about some thought-provoking topics that really are going to have some differing opinions. I'm okay with that. But remember, you can have a differing opinion, but do not be nasty. And I'd love to, let's hear from them. Let's have them send you some comments and questions, and let's do this again, because here's the thing. This is an evolving conversation. I'm not the be all end all. I'm just one girl's opinion, but let's, I think it's a pretty good opinion, Simon, but that might not be everybody's thought, but this is an evolving discussion over the years. This is not a one and done thing. So I'm thrilled to have met you. I think your story is wonderful, and I'm grateful for the time with you today.
Thank you. I'm grateful for your time too. And I thought it was a great conversation. I hope you listeners have enjoyed listening as much as Becky and I have had having this conversation. And please do get in touch. I get the odd email, not the odd as in they're from the odd emails. Right. I get rare emails. Let's be careful on our English, don't we? Right. Yeah, I get very occasional emails. How many have I had? Not many. So it'd be really great to hear. It'd be really great to hear from you, listeners, and thoughts, comments, questions.
And I'm easy to find on Facebook. Very easy to find on Facebook, Becky Fawcett. And, again, tell me what you got, but be kind about it. Yeah. That's it.
That's it. And there'll be a link to Becky's Facebook in the show notes. So thanks again, Becky, and look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thanks a lot, listeners.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.